All right, let's
It's
go.
it's noon here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and North Carolina, and this is CarEdge Live with me, Ray, and well, not Zach, Brandon again from Car Questions Answered, ladies and gentlemen. And please, please, please tell everybody you know to check out Brandon's channels on YouTube because, well, he's not making enough money as it is. So
I'm not making enough money. I
see.
heard that you had a sponsor from some kind of prince from somewhere, and I need to know how I get hooked up with this. Anyway, all right, we're going into this car market, and I've been wrong about it. I've been wrong about a lot about this car market, and what we thought was going to happen, at least from my perspective, is that we're going to get some slow trend down. We're going to have just some slow churn coming from these dealer auctions, but this is not what I'm experiencing, Ray. What I am experiencing right now is that, okay, a lot of dealers have stopped buying a lot of cars at auction, at least in my range. I'm a car dealer and I sell stuff that's $5,000 and under, and stuff that we couldn't touch about 6 months ago. I'm able to buy a lot of it. And as soon as I get it to my lot and price it for that $5,000 and under price point, it's getting snatched up just like that. We're selling it just as quickly as we're bringing it in. And usually during this time of year into summer, it's slower for us. And that hasn't been the case. So I'm wondering if there are a lot of customers that are just saying no to a lot of these higher prices, a lot of these mid-tier dealers, a lot of these new franchise dealers not signing up for the $750 monthly payment. And that's pushing them to come buy a cash car from me, meaning that dealers that are trying to gouge people are not able to spend up on cars. I'm able to come in, swoop some cars, and then be able to turn them just as quickly. I want to hear your take on what I'm seeing in the market, at least.
It seems to me, with what you're describing, that business is better this time of year than it normally has been historically. And we know that 83% of the surveyed population has said that new car prices are out of their reach and they can't see themselves being in the new car market. I think your experience is indicating, at least to me, that more and more people are realizing that they just can't buy a new car at any price at the moment between interest rates and everything else. And I think a larger percentage of the population is saying to themselves, I'm going to buy what I can for cash and not have to worry about a payment, not really put myself in a position where I have to deal with a franchise dealer and look either for private sellers that will be selling for $5,000 or less, or dealerships such as yours that have always strived to provide alternate transportation for people who just don't have the money for the more expensive stuff.
Yeah, and another thing that I'm seeing a lot more that I haven't seen in the last three and a half, 4 years is that I'm starting to see floor plan companies actually bring cars to auction and dump them. So for a lot of you that don't know, a floor plan company is a company that lends money to small dealers like me. They do on franchise, but what I see small dealers like me get their money from these floor plan companies, and they have to pay interest on the money that they're borrowing to actually buy their inventory. So if they don't sell it in a timely manner and they can't make their payments, then the floor plan company can actually repo the car from the dealer. And I know we talk a lot about consumers getting their cars repoed, and you don't really hear about dealers getting their cars repoed, but they absolutely do. And I'm seeing more and more and more of this happen, and I'm seeing it in real time coming to these auctions where they're going and they're helping these dealers sell cars by grabbing them off their lot and dumping them. And then that dealer is then on the hook for the difference. So what are you hearing about through the market as far as these floor plans go?
We have seen from people we know more and more dealer repossessions that are making their way to the auctions, and that kind of indicates to me that some of these dealers who are utilizing a line of credit in order to facilitate having an inventory on their lot have really flown a little too far over their skis with what it is that they're buying and how much they're paying for it. And You see it every day. There, the number of people who can no longer afford to find themselves looking at 15, 20, $25,000 vehicles, that number of people is growing dramatically for, a myriad of reasons: high interest rates, high prices, and dealers have gotten themselves in trouble with what they've been willing to pay for some of these older vehicles. We know um, that as far as vehicles that are going to get a premium at the auctions, it's those 2, 3 year old cars. And the cars that you specialize in, the 10, 12, 15 year old cars, those are the ones that are still seeing a decline in their wholesale values at the auctions. So when Zach and I look at what Black Book suggests, you know, when they say the market has gone up, it's typically because the premium that's being paid for those 2, 3 year old cars, and it's the market keeps going down on the older cars like you specialize in. And honestly, I think those are going to continue to become more and more desirable as we continue down this path of average transaction prices on new vehicles above $48,000.
So here's the confusing thing about the data for me. We're seeing that the higher end of the market is ticking up just a little bit, and we're seeing that the lower end is going down, at least what
Yeah.
I'm seeing, and that's what you're
Yeah.
seeing in the data. But what we're seeing from the consumer is that they're gravitating more to the lower end and they're coming away from the higher end of the market. So it seems like the dealers that are buying these cars on the wholesale level, they're doing the exact opposite of what their consumer is wanting them to do. And this makes no sense to me. And maybe that's why I'm actually successful in the business, because I feel like I'm going to what the consumer actually wants and not the opposite as what the data would suggest.
There are a lot of dealers out there that I think saw them. I forget what the baseball movie was, but the theory was if you build it, they will come. And and,
Field of
and
Dreams.
yeah, and so I think there's a lot of dealers out there who have subscribed to the theory that, well, if we buy it, they will come and we can sell it. No, they can buy it. Ain't nobody coming. Okay, and the reason people aren't coming is because even those 2 and 3 year old cars, the dealers perceive that they have to pay a premium for, because there is a shortage of lease returns of 2 to 3 year old cars, and there will continue to be that shortage through the end of 2026 because leasing declined so dramatically the past 2, 3 years ago. Dealers are just thinking, they're assuming that they have to pay a premium for that because they're assuming that the customers are going to be willing to do the same. Well, the prices of those used cars is too relatively close to the cost of a new car for that same customer. And so the customer is no longer willing to pay that premium for that 2 to 3 year old car. They'll just buy a brand new one. And those who could never afford to buy that 2 to 3 year old pre-owned car in the first place are gravitating towards lots like yours, where they are trying to conserve their money and just buy themselves basic transportation that they can drive till the wheels fall off, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, so let me tell you what I am actually concerned about for my business personally is that okay, we get 3 years down the road, and I think we're still going to have this massive used car shortage in the market just because we lost so many cars.
Mhm.
And it's going to start hitting me because even though I sell stuff that's $5,000 and under, that tier of dealer that it was buying that mid tier range or whatever, they're going to have to come down into my range to start buying stuff. And it's probably going to push the prices up in that segment just because they're not going to have the availability. That's what we saw over the last 2 years when we just didn't have any trade-ins because new cars weren't being bought. Is that I was having a lot of dealers that didn't buy my stuff. They were starting to buy my stuff. So the cars I use an example a lot, like a 2003 to 2005 Toyota Camry with 175,000 miles. I used to be able to buy it for what, $1,500 to $2,500, depending on how nice it was, and then we could make $1,000 on it, selling it to our customer. Now that same car, it still hasn't really come down all that much, and you're going to have to pay $2,500 to $3,500 now on a wholesale level to buy that same kind of car. And it's just because those dealers, even though the car's not anything better, it's now 2 years older than what it was when I was buying them previously. But I'm just not, I don't have access to those cars anymore. I'm worried that it's going to get thinner and thinner and thinner as the used car issues stay in place how they are.
Well, you have heard me, perhaps you have heard me say it. I know my son has heard me say it. I really think that this used car shortage, so to speak, because of the 15 to 18 million new cars that weren't built globally during the pandemic that should have and were scheduled to have been built, which means they were never built, they were never sold. There was suddenly a 15 to 18 million car shortage as far as pre-owned cars were concerned. I don't think that gets solved before the end of the decade. That's going to be with us for years. The one thing I think you may have going for you is that there are so many used car dealers who over leveraged themselves, and you see it because we just talked about it. We see their inventory being repoed by their lender. That those people won't be able to sustain their businesses, and so the competition for cars should thin out to some degree because the market's there's just not going to be as many independent used car dealers as there had been. Banks are going to make it more difficult for these dealers to be able to qualify for floor plans. So I think older cars will continue to depreciate, probably just not at the levels that they had been, but at a much faster pace than what the 2 and 3 and 4-year-old cars are depreciating at. So you're probably going to pay too much in comparison to what you used to pay, but you'll probably have more to choose from when you're paying a little bit too much, if that makes
So
sense.
the added problem going forward, we don't foresee this. I mean, the car market getting any better anytime soon. I mean, interest rates are going to go down slowly. Inflation's still here. MSRPs are still at peak levels. So we don't see more new cars being bought. My problem is, okay, 2 years ago there was a production problem, so
Yeah.
that decreased sales, so that decreased trade-ins, that decreased the amount of cars that I could get at auction. But now we're having a decrease in sales because of price, because of affordability, because of negative equity, and that is further adding on to the problems that I'm dealing with, because less trade-ins because of less sales means less cars for me to buy. So I think this is going to be a problem that I personally deal with and other dealers are going to deal with. And maybe it's just so bad as far as the demand side for used car dealers around my area that I'm able to actually buy more cars. I don't know. I can't figure it out, and I'm okay not figuring it out. I'm just happy I can buy cars and we sell them as quickly as we do.
I would say this, that people who bought new cars 2 and 3 years ago that would like to get out of them, they are going to be the proud owners of so much negative equity that they're not going to be trading out of them, and so that'll limit the number of vehicles that might make it to auction. But the type of vehicles that you're talking about, those type of vehicles probably will still get traded in if those people that own those 10, 12, 15, 18-year-old cars see themselves in a position to even purchase something else moving forward. Um, and having mentioned negative equity, if I may take one moment to remind people to go to www.caredge.com/negative and please fill out the survey so we can get this negative equity situation adequately addressed between using the information that we can gather and our friends at Black Book to put together a real-time report as to where the American population is in regards to negative equity. Thank you for allowing me to say that. But I think it's going to take more people trading older cars back into the marketplace for you to be able to get your hands on them. And I think maybe those people will trade cars for vehicles in the $10,000 to $15,000 range, but certainly not the $20,000 to $40,000 range, in my opinion.
Right. Well, let's jump to the next thing. So we've got this article that came out from Automotive News is GM's going to be facing a big class action lawsuit over faulty transmissions, and the suit claims that GM violated laws of 26 states by knowingly selling several 100,000 vehicles with faulty transmissions. So this is just another example of all of these automakers just, I don't know if you want to say rushed out product, but it seems like we're getting recall after recall after recall after recall from all of these automakers, and quality seems to just continually be going down.
I think that's been an issue in automobile manufacturing since, I don't know, the beginning of time.
Doesn't it feel like it's been worse though over the last 5-6 years?
Is it worse, or is it just the fact that it gets publicized more today than it did in the past? There are more venues, more opportunities for these issues to be discussed. In the past, you would have relied on newspapers, and then maybe you would have relied on either a local news channel or more than likely a national news broadcast stating that, gee, there's been a recall at General Motors. Today, there's the internet, there's YouTube, there's TikTok, so I think it just gets discussed more today.
So it's our fault.
It's our fault that more people will know about these recalls, in that sense. But it allows people, for the most part, I despise social media, okay, because in my heart of hearts, I believe it to be anti-social media. But there are some instances where social media works. And one of those instances is where people form these communities and they have conversations, and all of a sudden they realize they share the same issues with their particular vehicle as not only their neighbor, but maybe a couple 100,000 other people. And, in this case, I mean, General Motors was telling their dealers to tell the customers, well, it's just normal for these transmissions to shift harshly. And I mentioned it to you before the show. Well, yeah, if it's a defective transmission, that would be normal, okay? But if the transmission was engineered properly and put together properly, it would shift smoothly.
Yeah, it seems like they went to the used car dealer mentality. I don't know how many conversations I've had with customers be like, okay, well, it's a 2005 Ford Focus. The motor's going to shake a little bit. Those motor mounts are weak.
Yeah,
yeah, but on a new car, maybe we shouldn't have that same conversation.
And we shouldn't. And if we think this is the first time that manufacturers have brushed this stuff under the rug, didn't Ford in the 70s or 80s or maybe the late 60s and 70s, didn't Ford have a situation that involved millions of vehicles with automatic transmissions that oftentimes when you put them in park and it said you put them in park, they were still just in reverse. Okay. And I don't know, sometimes if the car is still in reverse and the emergency brake isn't necessarily on, it could roll backwards. And
Yeah,
Go
the
ahead.
big one that I remember, that's before my time, but the big one I remember from Ford is funny because it's like eras of recalls and problems from Ford. But it was when the cruise control, if you turned it on, then it was the pressure that was been put in it stays basically on. So your cruise control would continuously stay on even if the car was off, and it could lead to fires, and it burned down a lot of people's houses. That's the one I remember.
So I guess the reality is that there have been many cases where manufacturers have knowingly produced things that they knew were defective and covered it up as long as they could until either uh, the government said you need to do something about it, or the courts said you need to do something about it. And in reality, the manufacturers understood, well, it's cheaper to do this in the long run than to actually fix the damn things or produce them properly. And if I may, it's not just the automotive industry. I don't know. I'm old enough to remember when 4 out of 5 doctors recommended Camels if you were going to smoke a cigarette, or Chesterfield, because the tobacco company said there is no correlation between smoking and cancer. They said it. They knew it wasn't so, but they said it. This type of nonsense has been going on, I don't know, since snake oil salesmen were invented.
4 out of 5 doctors recommend cameras.
Yeah, that was one of the it was either Camels or
Oh,
Chesterfields. I mean, it was.
I w- I was born in the wrong time. That it must have been so nice back then. Just ignorance is bliss, and no media or anything like that that you can just instantly open your phone to. I bet that was great.
What was really interesting was the number of people that didn't cut back on their smoking even after the Surgeon General warnings were placed on the packs of cigarettes. By the way, moron, this stuff can kill you. Okay, light it at your own risk, and people continue to do so. And today, people still continue to do so. So we all make choices, personal choices or corporate choices. And sometimes they're good choices, and in some cases, not so good choices. GM just made a corporate decision that isn't necessarily a good decision, but it was a decision.
Just talking about older time, it just reminds me. So my grandfather got me into the car business. I've spent a lot of time with him over my my life, whatever. He was a professional bowler, and what he would do is he would just travel to the city that he was bowling in. And then I asked him, Grandpa, how did you ever find out where you were going? He said, well, I used a road map. And then when I got to the city, then I just started asking around where the bowling alley was. I was like, that had to be the best time ever. Just it's like every time you leave your house, it's like an adventure because you don't know where you're going. You don't know if you're going to get there.
But the best thing about life in those days, if I may share with you, was you could actually go to a gas station, and at gas stations they actually had mechanics that could work on your car. But one of the things that gas stations had were road maps. Okay, and they were folded up so that they would fit into your glove box, so that when you were traveling somewhere, hopefully you would pull over safely, and you would open up your road map, and you would look at the route that you wanted to take. Now, the biggest problem with that was folding that damn thing back up again so it would fit back in your glove box. Okay, I mean, I'm just telling you, at a certain point in time, you stopped folding, you just shoved the damn thing in the glove box, and you didn't care what kind of condition it was in. But yeah, it was a different time. Smartphones are great. And I suppose with AI, they're smarter than we are today. But I don't know. I'm smart enough to remember when you actually used a roadmap and you had to figure out how. Okay, and and hell, I use the navigation system in my car quite often. And I know there are times when I'm driving and it says, "Oh, you should do this instead of that," and I go, "Not today, sweetheart. I know where the hell I'm going. I don't think you do." I mean, and I shouldn't have to have conversations with the lady on my nav system. I just shouldn't.
I yell at her. Like, I get mad at her. She has no clue where she's going. I know best. I know when I need to turn.
Yes.
And then I have her yelling at me. I got my wife yelling at me. And then I told everybody. So I bought a Tesla recently. I'm going to
Yes.
sign up for FSD just so I can yell at it while it's driving, so I can feel like what it's like to be my wife.
Oh, well, that's wonderful, and you don't even have to have your wife in the car when you do it. That's
Yeah.
good.
I joke. She doesn't yell at me. She just tells me she keeps me in the right direction, and she's in the chat, so I feel like I'm obligated to say that at this moment. All
Well,
right, so hit me with the thing that you and Zach do for fun. There you go.
really, you gotta be kidding me.
All right, we've got a dealership that catches on to a scammer but plays along until the cops arrest him. So this scammer right here was able to get pretty close to the end of a transaction for buying 2 Tellurides, and the price of these 2 Tellurides was $158,885.
Yes,
So
and the whole concept of this is that this gentleman used the ID of someone who had passed away, and using that fake ID, he completed the transactions. He was handed the keys to the cars, to the Tellurides, okay, as the police arrived to arrest him. And I read that article, and I've had people try to scam me at dealerships, but I thought to myself as I was reading that article that he was buying 2 Tellurides for a total price of $158,865. And I'm thinking, well, that's almost $80,000 per Telluride. I believe the police might have arrested the wrong people. Okay, because it seems to me that the real thievery, okay, was in the way they priced those damn Tellurides. I don't know of any Tellurides that, between list price and taxes and tags and everything, in Memphis, Tennessee, should come up to nearly $80,000 out the door. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that there should have been more than just the one arrest, in my opinion. I have to say that, in my opinion, because the dealership might want to sue me.
yeah. So if we back in these numbers a little, So if we look at these numbers a little bit, and so it's 80,000 a piece. So my assumption would be each one of these Tellurides was probably high 60s, 68, 69,000. You're going to have $5,000-$6,000 worth of add-ons and your tax tag, license, everything like that. So high 60s is probably what they were charging. So on top of arresting the dealerships, they probably need to make their way over to Kia after that and arrest them for selling a Telluride at MSRP for around the high 60s. It's still Kia at the end of the day.
Do they even list for anywhere near that? What kind of equipment wouldn't, at that price, wouldn't it suddenly become a Genesis? I just don't see how that could be a Kia. And like I say, I think there should have been more than one arrest. I think the person using a stolen ID from a dead person should definitely be arrested. But goodness gracious, there are some dealership personnel that needed to be incarcerated as well.
All right, so I'm learning this technology. Zach kind of threw me into the fire. Said, "Hey, Brandon, you're to come on guest show and run the show." What?
Sure.
Okay, so anyway, pull up a Telluride here, 2024 Telluride. Oh, that's a used one, and it's $51,000. It's a used one. It's got 7,000. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Here's a new one. It's a 2024 Telluride S, and the MSRP is 40,000. How is the Prestige X line? That's got to be a nice automobile for
Let's
it to be
hope.
used, and $10,000 more than the new one.
I mean, I don't believe that you can find an MSRP on a brand new one more than 60 grand. And even at 60 grand, that seems, well, just between you and me, ridiculously high for a Kia.
All right, we got to get to these real quick because I'm already running out of time here. So we
Okay.
got one. It's Brandon with CQA and CarEdge. Great team. Thank you for.
Thank you, Fly Chomper Fly.
Yep. And then we got Jimmy's Auto Detailing. Love you guys. Wishing y'all a nice Labor Day weekend. And they want you to dance, Ray.
Well, there you go, buddy. I haven't had to do one of them in a while. Okay, get me off the damn screen.
All right. Show over. What do we do? All right.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you on YouTube, please.
Car Questions Answered is my is our main page. CQA Live. Yeah, it's there. If you want to watch, you don't want to watch any more of me. Don't go over there. That's fine.
No, please go over there. You know, Brandon was kind enough to fill in for Zach while I think Zach's on a train going to Austria today.
When's he coming back?
Huh?
When's he coming back?
Next week sometime. I don't know. Next Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't know. But Monday's a holiday. We're off. Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, Ray's on staycation. So I'm pretty sure the show's not happening. And if it is, I don't know.
It's going to be me. Huh? It's just going to be me. It's going to be Car Question Edge at that time. So
like
there we go.
Yeah, CQE.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just to give you an update, Zach had a lovely day in Venice yesterday. Found a nice young lady to give him a tour of the city. Had a picnic. Had a great time. Really had a good day. And I'm frozen, I know. And he's catching a train to Austria today. His big race, the triathlon thing, the Ironman thing, is Sunday. And so the hope is that he survives that. And then he recovers, I guess, Monday and Tuesday. And I don't know when and then it's back to Venice. And you know, hopefully he doesn't do any walking through the canals.
All right, we got to end it. Somebody's going to yell at me, so end it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Have
a great Labor Day weekend. Thank you, Brandon. And we'll see you back here eventually.
All right, I'm going to push the button.
I think you should.